Punk culture, it represents a lot of things, but primarily is made up of beliefs such as nonconformity, anti-corporatism, and not selling out. It's an aesthetic or culture that was never really prominent in my life aside from being an angsty teenager in school. But don't get me wrong, I love it for its musical influence or fashion, and especially my entertainment. Look, there's even a punk-themed Spider-Man. But you're probably wondering what Sunset Overdrive has to do with punk culture, or better yet, you don't even know what Sunset Overdrive is. I want to talk about this game because I feel like we're in a time now more than ever where big corporations have a tight hold on the gaming industry. And I've been staring at my monitor looking for a game to play. So in this little video I made for myself about video game backlog, I talked a bit about how I haven't finished Sunset Overdrive. And here's a little update, I finally finished the dang thing. It only took me about 9 years. There comes a point in every gamer's life where they're presented with the question, Xbox or PlayStation? Which is truly life's most important question. When the 8th generation of consoles were coming out, I was pretty sure I was gonna get a PlayStation 4 after spending years with my Xbox 360. And let's be honest, Knack wasn't turning any heads. I mean, I think people only found out about Knack from Video Game Donkey's videos. But damn, did Xbox make it a difficult decision, because Sunset Overdrive was so tempting. It could have single-handedly been the reason to convince me to get an Xbox One. Everything they were showing off about this game had me hooked. There's this trailer from E3 2014 that is my favorite they made for the game. It perfectly encapsulates what Sunset Overdrive is. The mood and atmosphere is set. We get no introduction to the trailer. This is a dark, gritty shooter with a soldier fighting for his life. Till suddenly.
Cover mechanic, right?
God, I could watch this trailer multiple times. What am I saying? I have watched this trailer multiple times. It constantly subverts the viewer's expectations. They made it seem like the trailer is supposed to end like 2 times before it actually even does.
You and your crate are
It's like, okay, and now the title card. Oh, okay, there's more.
Oh, hey! Welcome to spectacular Sunset City. Okay, here's the situation. A contaminated energy drink has turned everyone into mutants. It's a f***ing video game.
Wow, that was cool. Can't wait to see the gameplay in a few months. Then it's like, here's some gameplay footage, by the way. Man, it's so freaking cool. Definitely a trailer that has never left my mind since I first watched it. I think it deserves huge praise because most game cinematic trailers are the most epic looking animations, and then the actual game is just a bit off in comparison. I'm sorry, I know this is such an unfair comparison, and there's tons of fans of these Star Wars games, but come on, we've all felt this thing watching these badass trailers. Usually most video game coverage videos are like, okay, here's the story first, but I gotta talk about this game's style. And not like close, but I mean, yes, close, we'll get to it later. If you allow yourself to immerse into the mood and atmosphere of this game, you can feel the rebellious punk energy it has. And that's what makes this game feel so unique and stand out from the others. It's got that over-the-top do whatever the fuck you want vibe. I have a tendency to love things that ooze its style. Things like Persona 5 and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse that proudly wear their aesthetics. The Sunset Overdrive is just the same. The game's concept art and designs were perfectly translated into the game. They managed to pull some beautiful vibrant colors, like the beautiful glow of color combinations in your weapon effects, and the strong orange colored blood splats of the OD. Oh, those are the zombie mutants of the game. I'll get to them later too. But this game is easily one of the top games I refer to for its impeccable visual flair. The comic book inspiration is so visually apparent. I love seeing their cool usage of panels and how actions create stylized text of what's happening. I mean, come on man, how can you not like this? It reminds me a lot of how Scott Pilgrim vs. the World uses these elements. I believe that it's the exclusivity deal Insomniac Games signed with Microsoft is what allowed them to create the vision they had for Sunset Overdrive. I mean, before this, they were known for making countless PlayStation-only titles like Spyro and Ratchet and Clank. And while I think exclusivity can suck by not letting others experience a game, I know it's supposed to provide healthy competition, it still sucks. After the Xbox release, they eventually ported the game to PC, so I'm mostly reporting from playing the PC version. It's not a terrible port, but it does have some bug issues and glitches every now and then, but ultimately it's very much in a playable state. And I do want to note that Insomniac Games outsourced the work of porting the game to PC to another company, so that might have some effect, not sure. But like I said, I was able to play the game at more than 60 frames per second and at like I think 2K resolution on my computer specs, so again, make sure you double check that you meet the recommended before you do play. With that being said, everything about Sunset Overdrive is meant to be unconventional. The game is full of fourth wall breaking gags and hijinks.
Yeah, I got guns too.
Damn! But how do I know you can use them?
I'm an American.
I love that they have a whole bit that addresses video game world boundaries having invisible walls. I'm pretty sure this is like the most talked about gag from this game. So I'd say to make sure that this is the type of comedy and writing that you're okay with, because it's apparent throughout the entire game. Sunset Overdrive is a game that isn't afraid to be what it is, a fucking video game. There's tons of gaming and pop culture references in it. Some of it is super cheesy stuff and borderline cringe at times, but you can tell everyone had fun with what they were trying to make. Sunset Overdrive came out in a phase where I'd say meta humor wasn't fully hated like it is today. The dialogue is definitely not to be taken seriously, and is honestly kinda similar to the likes of High on Life. You know, the Justin Roiland talking gun game.
Another pipe? What the fuck? This is lazy. This is just lazy game development. This is lazy level design. I'm calling it out. Kotaku, Polygon, IGN, all of you.
I'm not gonna get into that whole drama, but most people know how that game's dialogue was received. But I guess this game's dialogue was made for me because of how much I enjoyed hearing characters say the F word and B word every other sentence. Fuck. Ooh, I'm so scared. Oh shit. So the real star of the game is Sunset City itself. They managed to create a real gem of an open world. It serves as the player's giant playground or skate park for lack of a better term. The interactable environment blends in seamlessly with the art style of the cityscapes. I hate it when a game uses blatant ways to show players, hey, this is the direction to go, or this is the thing you interact with. Like, wow, I couldn't tell this was the direction to go with all the yellow paint and shit pointing me towards this way. But who are you in this world? You play as quite literally the main character. The game features a character creator system that's pretty good. Nothing to the glorious levels of the Saints Row franchise, but good enough. I went with the male character because I love Yuri Lowenthal's voice, better known as Sasuke from Naruto or, you know, the Amazing Spider-Man himself. Another Insomniac game. How interesting. It's funny to imagine this is a more punk and angsty Peter Parker saying these lines. Wait, what's the female voice sound like?
Yeah, did you see that? You're lucky I was here.
What a fuck up.
Yeah.
I meant you.
What was I supposed to do?
Stephanie Lemelin. She was also the voice in Spider-Man as Screwball. Ugh, Screwball. But very interesting, Insomniac. Anyways, your character is a regular citizen of Sunset City who is tirelessly working their dead-end job. But tonight is the big release of Fizco's new energy drink, Overcharged Delirium XT. So which means everything goes wrong and the drink starts mutating everyone into zombie mutants called OD, short for overcharged drinkers. I also think the name is kinda clever because it can be short for the term overdosed. So being one of the few survivors, you become the game's hero who is trying to find a way out of Sunset City. I'll leave it to some playthrough or other video essay if you want to know the whole campaign. I mean, there weren't any characters that left a real memorable impression on me, besides I guess Sam for how much shit he gets throughout the game. Again, the story is really nothing to write home about. It's serviceable to help push the story beats of the game forward, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's quirky enough to have a bit of charm to it. I mean, it doesn't get more punk than taking down a shady corporate company by the local youth. But going back to your character, you can fully customize their outfits to match how you look or just be a complete abomination. Thankfully, it's all cosmetic, even the melee weapons, so you don't have to worry about gear levels with passive stats and all that crap. And man, do you get a wide variety of options to choose from, all looking stylized as hell to match the game. You can be who you want to be, maybe not that much. but I do wish there was a little bit more detail that went into the melee weapons by having more unique animations to them. They're all just baseball swing and baseball swing and baseball swing. A little variety would have been nice. How does the game play though? Because if it doesn't play well, then why bother? Sunset Overdrive is fucking fun. The CEO of Insomniac Games, Ted Price, said that fun was their main focus for creating the game. The team went in knowing they didn't want to create a basic cover-based shooter, which was plaguing almost every shooter game at the time. Don't get me wrong, it's a good mechanic, but like anything good in the games industry, it gets oversaturated quick. Sunset Overdrive is actually very anti-cover shooter. It wants you to never stop moving, kinda in the same vein as Doom shooters. Having such a big open world map, Insomniac did right by making the traversal feel so satisfying to do. You'll be rail grinding, wall running, and doing flips all over the place. Kinda looking like something straight out of Jet Set Radio. They even said that Jet Set Radio was an inspiration for the game, and when people compared it to that, they felt immensely flattered. I'm glad that they weren't afraid to use something that we've seen in a small handful of games like Tony Hawk and Sonic. You're actually kind of de-emphasized from controlling the game normally. Your character's regular movement speed on the ground is really slow and sluggish. It's a good way to tell the players that these other methods of traversing are more ideal. And it's not hard to pull these moves off, they're all mapped to the analog stick and 3 buttons. If you're playing on mouse and keyboard, good luck. The snappy feeling of your character doing these moves may feel off, but trust me, it'll all serve a purpose. So on top of parkouring, you'll be using a wide variety of weapons in your arsenal, or I guess weapon wheel. Like everything else, the designs and the weapons are amazing. Like, look at this one. It's a dick and balls, and it's called the Flaming Compensator. Amazing. Just amazing. There's plenty of fun toys to cause havoc with, and with the huge selection of guns, every player can find what they like for their taste. For me, my favorite was the Dirty Harry, because who doesn't love a big-ass hand cannon? But also, it's a nod to the 1970s Clint Eastwood films, Dirty Harry. The reference is that he uses an iconic 44 Magnum. The shooting mechanics are a bit different in that you have an auto lock-on system to enemies, but you can control your shot more when aiming down the sights. It'll probably take some getting used to, but this different take on shooting is what elevates the combat. So in an a la Ratatouille style, you take these two elements of traversal and combat and combine them together. The movement options in shooting are simple enough on their own, but it's when you start cooking and mixing these together is when the combat shines. So now you'll be doing crazy maneuvers while shooting your enemies, and the game rewards you for playing in its style. You have this meter that shows your style level, and each level you reach you get these power-ups called amps. And these power-ups can range from shooting Mario-style fireballs to exploding the ground from jumping on platforms. To increase your style level, you have to be constantly killing enemies and parkouring in different ways. You can't just grind on one rail and just shoot enemies and expect the style points to keep going up. It's a great reward system for players who can learn and master its combat. It's cool that you can do all the amazing stuff you see in the trailers. I mean, when you break it down, it's not far from third-person hack-and-slash games like Devil May Cry, pushing players to engage with its combat and find ways to mix up your playstyle. When I get into the zone playing, I feel like I'm making a Sunheat Legend gameplay video for how slick all my combos look. Just like Insomniac's Spider-Man games, I can just mindlessly traverse the map and beat up enemies because of how good the game feels to play. Sunset Overdrive was their first time making an open world game too. I mean, knowing they made both of these games, it's no surprise why I enjoy it. It's kind of funny to think that this game was like Insomniac's prelude to making Spider-Man PS4 later down the road. This shows how the team knew that the traversal and velocity you have in an open world game is so important. What I do think would be a fun mechanic to add to the traversal would be a trick system. Something similar to their Spider-Man games, where you can do cool poses and acrobatic maneuvers mid-air that can generate you more style points. Or even more akin to the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games, just racking up trick combos. The bones for the gameplay are there, so it's just all about making it look as flashy as possible. Aside from completing the main story, there's a ton of other side things to do. For starters, there's tons of collectibles scattered throughout Sunset City. While I think collectathons can be boring, you can easily make them a passive enjoyment by having a good traversal system. I really enjoy just mindlessly collecting stuff to help me unlock new upgrades. But with some activities, they could have reeled it back in on the quantity of stuff you can do, because some of the challenges and time trials are on the fence of being fun time wasters to tedious work. Like some of the side objectives consist of fetch quests where you'll be out gathering some object for a character. The first few are okay by unlocking cosmetics and rewarding you XP, but after the first few, they started to get stale. It's thanks to the wacky writing and jokes I mentioned earlier that help make them worthwhile. But see, I feel conflicted about some of the parkour time trials as they aren't particularly difficult, but they do lead you onto interesting paths that they have set, which I found myself using in the open world or combine them with the way I was traversing to get somewhere even faster. And to make them more engaging, you could just say, hey, add more cosmetics or other rewards for completing them, but it still wouldn't fix how tedious it feels completing them. But see, I think this is something that they fixed really well in the Spider-Man games, because every time you would have to collect the backpacks, I enjoyed it because I loved hearing all the little stories behind each trinket you found. So you're probably saying, all this would be really fun with multiplayer. And hey, they did make an 8-player co-op mode. Too bad it was only for the console version. The mode is called Chaos Squad, and you'd link up with other players and choose different mini-quests to eventually lead up to a final night defense, which is just a wave-based survival mode. While it is a bit of a fresh idea to help give players stuff to do with each other, I think what most people wanted and still want with a co-op mode in an open world game is to enjoy that world with your friends, like just messing around with the game's mechanics and playing the story together. But I understand that they kinda wanted to go for a single player story experience, so I guess be grateful for what you have, but when it comes to the PC version, we've got to have something in the first place to even be grateful. It's that time again where I talk about how I love a game's soundtrack. So I'm not too sure of what songs are copyrighted in this game, but who gives a shit because we're not even monetized yet, so it's kind of why all the stream VODs aren't up on the channel. But it should be cool for these songs currently playing because it's not all just licensed music, right? Okay, yeah, okay, we're good. All of the composed and licensed music fit or set the game's mood just right. I mean, what better than punk rock to go with your game about punk? It would be really cool if this game had Devil May Cry 5's dynamic music mechanic where the song gets more hype the better you play. I don't have too much to say here besides gushing at how rad all the tracks are. I mean, they've got a literal song about diarrhea. But the PC port does have this issue where the game's music will just cut out entirely or just refuse to play when it should. So yeah, that sucks. I gotta do a little interjection here because Rocksteady, the people who made the Batman Arkham games, is making the Suicide Squad game, and there's been a lot of people saying this game is similar or in the likes to Sunset Overdrive, and I want to say that is wrong. Just because there's gameplay of the characters jumping really high and running with guns doesn't even make it close to what Sunset Overdrive is. From gameplay to aesthetics, I'd say they're trying to capture the vibe of the Guardians of the Galaxy instead. But also from just watching this game, I see more of Gotham Knights than anything. Yeah man, this ain't it. I don't know what else I could say to convince you how punk this game is. And not just based on its appearance. You can take all of the clear punk visuals and music away and it still would be. Sunset Overdrive was made to be different from everything else being made at the time. It follows the traits of punk culture by not conforming to the mainstream. I wholeheartedly believe that Insomniac didn't sell out by signing exclusivity to Microsoft. Rather, I see it was more of a necessity for them so they didn't have to sell out. I mean, with AAA title games, let alone launch titles, you have to deal with a single idea being passed all around the room by higher ups. I imagine both Sony and Xbox want to be able to have full control of the first games coming to their upcoming consoles. Insomniac made sure this game was punk all the way down to its core. I so desperately would love for Insomniac Games to make a sequel, but not without the love they had crafting the first one. And just because it was originally an Xbox exclusive launch title, Insomniac actually still owns the rights to the IP itself. Thank God, because if they actually really wanted to do something with it and didn't own the rights, it'd be a nightmare. I'm looking at you, No More Heroes and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. Insomniac's creative director, Marcus Smith, said that there's nothing really stopping them from making a sequel and that he'd love to return to the series. I mean, in all the interviews the lead developers did, you can just tell these guys talk about their game with such passion, and how it was a game that was enjoyable for them to work on. I'd love to see this team take on a sequel after all the experience they've gained from working on their newer titles. Also, Sony registered a trademark for Sunset Overdrive in 2021, which is not a confirmation by any means, but one can still have hope. I hope you can understand just how much I love this game. There's an endless amount of clips of this game I could play showing off how goofy and fun it is. Even in the year of whatever you're watching this, I could still easily recommend it based on how solid the game feels to play. Seriously a hidden gem. These guys knew they just wanted to give people a really cool experience through punk culture. Please, if you have an Xbox or PC, play it. Nowadays, it's running for a fair price on Steam, or you can play it through good old Game Pass. Dude, I cannot stop talking about you. You've been in like, what, 2 or 3 of my past videos? I'm itching for a game this year that follows Insomniac's approach to just making a game they enjoyed making. Hopefully, after the earful I just gave you sparks some sort of interest or acknowledgement of the game, or you're also just a huge nerd for Sunset Overdrive like me. So, as always, thanks to those who made it here to the end, and thanks for just listening. I'll catch you later. No, oh my god, are you serious? All the outtakes are gone? Fuck. Well, no outtakes. Sorry guys.